Hello everyone, I'm Megan Sullivan and welcome to my final verdict for Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, developed by Omega Force and published by Nintendo. It took me about 56 hours to get through my first playthrough, the Azure Gleam route, and in the process I left no stone unturned. I did every mission, paralogue, side quest, and aggressively pursued getting an A rank for most of the character dialogues. Full disclosure, I also played some of the Golden Wildfire and Scarlet Blaze routes, but have yet to complete them. So, is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes worth your time? Yes, this game is pretty great, but that greatness comes with a few caveats, so player beware. Now, back when I reviewed the demo, I raved about the story. It felt like it was a love letter to fans of Fire Emblem Three Houses, with its heaping piles of fan service, tantalizing hints that it would provide context for some of the latter's murkier plot points, and its introduction of characters only alluded to in Three Houses but never actually seen. And after playing an entire route from start to finish, I can still say that I enjoy the story, just not as much. Unfortunately, I finished Three Hopes feeling a little frustrated. Rather than tie up loose ends, the story ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. And I should warn you that if you're not already familiar with the complex machinations that play out in Three Houses, you're probably going to struggle to follow what's happening in Three Hopes. Outside of a few readable documents you can collect around your base camp, there's very little story exposition for newcomers. Three Hopes expects players to have already done their homework, and thus only offers a few snippets of background information before launching straight into a tale of war and vengeance, one elevated by excellent voice acting and wonderful character interactions, but a little marred by the developer's inability to tie off any narrative threads left dangling, which is disappointing. And it's disappointing because there's just so much potential here. As I explained in my demo review, Three Hopes is a giant what-if scenario, where instead of seeing events through the eyes of Byleth, the main protagonist in Fire Emblem Three Houses, you play as newcomer Shez, a hereby unknown mercenary that was once nearly killed by Byleth and now seeks to surpass them in battle. Helping them achieve this goal is a mysterious entity living rent-free in Shez's head named Arvel, whose motives for helping Shez are murky at best. In this alternative universe, it's Shez, not Byleth, who saves the young leaders of the three royal houses of Fodlan from bandits. It's Shez, not Byleth, who joins one of the classes at the Officers' Academy at the Fortress of Garreg Mach, and it's Shez, not Byleth, who gets caught up in a war that pits the Adrestian Empire against the Kingdom of Fargus, the Church of Suros, and depending on the route you take, the Leicester Alliance. Which side you help depends on which class you joined at Garreg Mach, and there are 3 separate stories that play out depending on your allegiance. By the way, so far as I know, there is no secret 4th route, although there is New Game Plus. Now, I'm not going to spoil too much of the story here, but like I said, it ends on a little bit of a vague note. However, the reason I still enjoyed it is because I got to reacquaint myself with my favorite students at Garreg Mach, and I let out so many happy gasps as a parade of characters I've always wanted to meet not only showed up on the battlefield or in cutscenes, but some of whom even happily declared they would fight alongside my protagonist. That was pretty great. I just wish we could have learned a little bit more about one of these new characters, and that character is Arvel. Three Hopes makes much ado about introducing this mysterious character, but then dedicates only one missable chapter, and I think there's a paralogue, to revealing their true identity before just, moving on. This is one of those instances where I feel like Arvel was supposed to play a much bigger role, but for whatever reason, that part of their story got dropped. I don't know, it just feels like this was a missed opportunity to really expand on the world building that was introduced in Three Houses. Still, at least I got to hang out with the Blue Lions again, and it was nice to see many of the students at Garreg Mach bond in ways I hadn't seen before, particularly Felix and Dimitri. There were things left unsaid between them in Three Houses that finally got said here, and it made me very happy, and that's all I'm gonna say. Okay, enough about the story. A good game has to be a good game first, and I'm very happy to report this game is in fact good. It's actually kind of great. Aside from some technical issues that we'll get into in a second, Three Hopes is a lot of fun to play. Omega Force manages to thread the needle when it comes to ensuring the button-mashing aspects of a Musou game complement the strategic elements of a Fire Emblem game. And if you love the first Fire Emblem Warriors game like I did, you'll definitely get a kick out of Three Hopes. So, the gameplay can be divided into 3 main components. battles, which take place in and around fortifications scattered across Fodlan, preparation for battles, which take place at base camp, and an exploration mode where you visit destinations on the world map and access things like resource materials used to expand your camp and acquire better equipment, valuable items, money, side missions, paralogs, which are a good way to get to know some of the heroes better, and points that can be spent on raising your army's morale or abilities. You can even coax the elusive merchant and franchise staple Anna to come sell her wares at your base camp. At any rate, the bread and butter of the entire series is the combat, so here's how it works. After war breaks out in Fodlan, your army is tasked with marching into fortresses and routing the bandits, enemy generals, monsters, or big bosses lurking within. Each locale has its own objectives and missions, and once these are completed, you win the battle. During each battle, several strategic objectives are thrown your way, and it's important to keep track of these to avoid a fail state. Objectives include defeating base captains to ensure more soldiers don't take the field, capturing a stronghold which will slowly grant HP to you and your allies, escorting an important ally off the battlefield, disabling enemy weapons, defending a strategic position, and luring an enemy into a trap. There are also optional side missions that give you extra rewards for doing things like stopping a thief before they run off with treasure. No mission is exactly alike, and because of that, each mission I successfully completed made me feel like a competent tactician. Part of being a competent tactician is going in with a plan, and I like that players have the ability to look over the battle map before the action starts in order to see what types of enemies and layout they're up against. More importantly, I like that players have access to a pre-battle convoy where they can quickly swap out characters, weapons, skills, and even a character's job class before marching through the gates of the enemy fortress and ordering individual units to split up and take a strategic stronghold. The thing I liked most, though, is being able to spend special points on extra tactical units that can really ruin the enemy's day at an opportune time. There's just something satisfying about weakening an enemy at the start of a mission or surprising them by calling in auxiliary troops in the middle of a fight. Although I admit I spent a lot of those strategic points trying to convince familiar faces on the other side of the war to change their allegiance. Yes, a lot of these mechanics were brought over from the first Fire Emblem Warriors game, but don't worry, if you haven't played that game, Three Hopes is still pretty intuitive on its own. And even if you're not the brainiest tactician ever, there's still plenty of opportunity to make up for that with your brawn as you rock out to bodacious remixes of the Fire Emblem Three Houses soundtrack. What? I really like the music. At any rate, this is a Musou game first and foremost, which means you'll be spending a lot of time hacking and slashing your way through hordes of enemies using one of 4 basic combos of weak and strong attacks, as well as a series of unique skills and abilities taken directly from Three Houses and cleverly grafted onto the gameplay here. These skills include class-specific attacks, unique abilities divided into action, support, and tactical categories, combat arts and magic, warrior specials which do major damage to a large area, partner specials where 2 people can team up to support each other and take down enemies faster, and even crest effects, extra attributes for characters born with a magical crest. There are also unique actions like Critical Rush, which is performed after getting rid of an enemy's stun gauge, aka an enemy shield, and things like the Awakening ability, which allows a character to go into a sort of overdrive mode that renders them temporarily much more powerful and pretty much invincible, which is super convenient in a boss fight. Juggling different skills and making sure you don't run through your weapon's durability while using them, plus using the D-pad to quickly switch between characters and try out their unique abilities is a real treat. And loot drops, treasure chests, and access to health potions ensures that even when things get dicey, they don't always feel entirely unfair. Although I'm happy to report that there are 3 difficulty modes you can bounce between at any time, and for those who aren't too keen on Fire Emblem's notorious permadeath system, yes, casual mode is available. By the way, although I can't speak on it since I didn't have anyone else to play with, there is 2-player split screen mode available for all those interested in winning the day a little faster. In short, combat and strategy are fun, and once you're victorious on the battlefield, you can make your way triumphantly through your base camp loaded with coin, loot drops, and newly leveled up characters. Speaking of base camp, it's between battles where a lot of the real strategy and story takes place. Base camp serves as a replacement for Garrick Mach, and it's here where you can whip your army into shape by unlocking and mastering a variety of job classes, visiting the blacksmith to forge, repair, and unleash the full potential of weapons, attending lectures that give you access to better healing potions and increase the number of times you can use your warrior gauge, or racking up rewards for meeting certain goals. You can even use money to quickly level up any units falling behind the rest of the group. Meanwhile, like in Three Houses, you can use activity points earned in battle to either train your units so they become more proficient at a specific vocation, or use those activity points to boost morale by serving stat-boosting meals or doing chores around camp. There's no shortage of interesting and useful things to do, and a convenient fast travel system means you can easily bounce from one location to another as you shower your favorite teammates with gifts and items that will permanently increase their stats. But if I'm honest, what I love most about Base Camp is that this is where you can spend time getting to know your fellow house members by either conversing with them and strengthening your bond, which means they'll help you out more in battles, or going on pleasant outings with them and doing some light, weird flirting. I don't know what's going on here, I just love that Rodrigue is blushing. I would say that I literally spent half my time in camp, and I really enjoyed the combination of socializing and battle planning I experienced there. But as much as I enjoy playing Three Hopes, there are some mechanical issues that I just can't ignore. For one thing, the camera feels off. It's too tight in places, and it doesn't always follow the action in an intuitive way. Another issue is how whenever you break through an enemy's stun gauge and send them flying, you have to run across the field in order to follow up with a strong attack. I also feel like the lock-on system for enemies is a bit janky, although not nearly as janky as the frame rate, which is kind of my biggest issue. I don't know why this game doesn't have 30 frames per second locked in, but it doesn't, and it really interrupts the action. Well, not just the action, it's especially noticeable in base camp and during certain cutscenes. The graphics in this game are actually pretty nice. Not mind-blowing, but nice, yet the stuttering frame rate distracts from that. I'm hoping at some point Omega Force will patch this so it's no longer an issue. But these cons are ultimately outweighed by all the pros. The gameplay is consistently entertaining, its characters are just the best, the music is good, and the graphics are solid. So although I had issues with the lack of plot resolution and am not impressed with some of the technical hiccups, I still say this game is worth your time, particularly if you're already a fan of Fire Emblem Three Houses. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you later!